Hello and welcome to Jedediah's Corner. After historic ruling, in the case of South Africa versus Israel, charging Israel with the intent to commit genocide, the court ruled that there is a plausible case for genocide and issued provisional measures to prevent more killing and displacement. The West's response was expected but nonetheless heartless, genocidal, and cold-blooded. The Israeli Nazi Party released text messages from several members of UNRWA, an organization that aids Palestinian refugees in several countries, and based off of this scanty evidence, without a trial or investigation, 9 countries pulled funding, and I believe it's about 6 more have added since this was written. Now, I would like to read a statement released by this humanitarian organization. UNRWA's life-saving aid may end due to funding suspension. This was written on the 27th of January, 2024. Over 2 million people in Gaza depend on UNRWA for survival as war and displacement continue. And this is from Filippi Lazzarini, the UNRWA Commissioner General. Amman, 22nd January 2024. 9 countries have of today temporarily suspended their funding to UNRWA. These decisions threaten our ongoing humanitarian work across the region, including and especially in the Gaza Strip. It is shocking to see a suspension of funds to the agency in reaction to these allegations against a small group of staff, especially given the immediate action that UNRWA took by terminating their contracts and asking for a transparent, independent investigation. The United Nations Office of Internal Oversight Services, OIOS, the highest investigative authority in the UN, has already been seized of this very serious matter. UNRWA is the primary humanitarian agency in Gaza, with over 2 million people depending on it for their sheer survival. Many are hungry as the clock is ticking toward a looming famine. The agency runs shelters for over 1 million people and provides food and primary health care, even at the height of hostilities. In its ruling yesterday, the International Court of Justice ordered Israel must take immediate and effective measures to enable the provision of urgently needed basic services and humanitarian assistance to address the adverse conditions of life faced by Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. These measures are aimed at preventing irreparable damage to the rights of Palestinians. The only way that this can be done is through cooperation with international partners. Especially UNRWA is the largest humanitarian actor in Gaza. Some 3,000 core staff out of 13,000 in Gaza continue to report for work, giving their communities a lifeline which can collapse any time now due to the lack of funding. It would be immensely irresponsible to sanction an agency and an entire community it serves because of allegations of criminal acts against some individuals, especially at a time of war, displacement, and political crises in the region. UNRWA shares the list of all its staff with host countries every year, including Israel. The agency never received any concerns on specific staff members. Meanwhile, an investigation by OIOS into the heinous allegations will establish the facts. Moreover, as I announced on 17 January, an independent review by external experts will help UNRWA strengthen its framework for the strict adherence of all staff to the humanitarian principles. I urge countries who have suspended their funding to reconsider their decisions before UNRWA is forced to suspend its humanitarian response. The lives of people in Gaza depend on the support, and so does regional stability. And that's the end of their statement. The ICJ hearings were broadcast quite dishonestly. The South African case was not carried on most channels, and portions of the Israeli defense were. It seems since the beginning of this onslaught on Gaza that did not begin on October 7th. On October 6th, a Palestinian man who I believe his name is Rafa, a historian and a leader in the community, was assassinated by Israeli forces. This has been ongoing for almost 75 years, and there have been back and forth clashes since the colonial force of England decided to plant their flag in the land like they did in so many other places where they didn't own the land, they didn't know the people. They just came in, and I'm laughing just because it's so absurd. Came in and planted their flags and said, "This is ours now," and then gave it away to someone else. It's not to take anything away from the horrors that the Jewish people endured during the Holocaust. In fact, what Israel is doing now is quite horrible for the reputation of Jewish people all across the world. They are harming the reputation of the Jewish people. They are promoting anti-Semitism because they are conducting a genocide on defenseless people in Gaza. They may have some means of resistance, but they are against a technologically advanced, well-funded army with tanks and airplanes and drones. And you're looking at people who can barely even find enough food to eat or water to drink that's not polluted. And Israel's done absolutely everything they can to flatten all the infrastructure in Gaza, which is a war crime, to take out schools and hospitals. And now they are attempting to starve the people that are left there in Gaza, who have been displaced constantly and under constant bombing for it's a little bit more than 110 days now. Protesters thumbing their nose at international law block aid trucks to Gaza against the supposed policy of Israel to let aid in. They were joined by a Kahanist MK named Limor Son. So who are the Kahanists? Who are these people? Let me tell you a story. In 1993, the Oslo Accords were signed, marking what should have been the first step in the peace process to establish a Palestinian state. While the world hoped for an end to the decades of violence, the violent settlers encroaching on Palestinian land, evicting residents, and establishing illegal outposts, they had something else in mind. To them, peace spelled the end to their project, complete control of all of the land for Israel and nothing for the Palestinians. On February 25th, 1994, Baruch Goldstein, a member of the far-right Zionist movement KAK, called for a jeep to take him to the Cave of the Patriarchs. While Goldstein was a known settler living illegally on annexed Palestinian land, he was also a doctor, and the soldiers were paid approximately $250,000 a year to guard these illegal settlements, happily complied. He gave his phone and keys to the driver, asking him to return them to his wife. The driver thought nothing of the Galil automatic weapon he carried in his hand. This was occupied territory outside the borders of Israel, and the Arab population had for decades been provoked to violence because of these brutal land grabs. Baruch exited the jeep and set out to commit cold-blooded murder. He entered the Cave of the Patriarchs on the 15th day of Holy Ramadan, a place where at the time both Jews and Muslims prayed. The good doctor, as he walked past some Jewish worshippers preparing for morning prayer, and opened the door to Isaac Hall. Isaac Hall was a large room filled with columns and arches, the floor carpeted with beautifully woven ornate rugs. Baruch stared at the backs of 800 peaceful Muslims in prayer, waved, raised his weapon, and began firing. Caught unaware, as this unthinkable act unfolded, 29 worshippers succumbed to the barrage of bullets. Screams filled the air and chaos ensued. A fire extinguisher was grabbed, and when the security forces entered the room, 29 lay dead. Baruch Goldstein, his head bashed in, lay in the corner. His last act in this world, one to damn his soul to an eternity of torment, lay with his brain matter soaking into the rug, eyes just nearly less lifeless than moments before. The Hebron massacre is just one touch point in the ongoing colonization of Palestinian land by violent Zionist settlers. And why mention Goldstein? Why start the story here? I'm glad you asked. In 2007, the current Minister of National Security in Israel, Itamar Ben-Gvir, was arrested on charges of incitement to racism and support of a terrorist organization in 2007. This did not happen on October 7th, 2023. Now, if you live in the West, you might be saying, what? Hang on a second. This is the Minister of National Security? Yes, unfortunately, he is. And the situation in Israel is darker than most of us have thought. Hiding under the surface, nearly contained, and bubbling up like oil, racism and murderous intent. A religion of revenge grows from the blood spilt there. Centuries of putrid accumulation. To understand this conflict, you must understand two important things. Zionism is not Judaism. In 1942, a book was written, Jews Against Zionism, or I believe maybe 1995 or 1945. That's more than 75 years ago. And there are plenty of Jewish people in this world that do not support Zionism, because Zionism from its very beginning was a settler colonial project, and Israel itself is a settler colonial project. They can't say, oh, the war is violent and in the past you did bad things, all you countries did bad things. It's true, but that doesn't justify you doing it. And it all happened within one lifetime. There are people alive that saw Palestine get settled by Israel, and they still live to this day. This isn't 500-600 years ago. This isn't 1,000 years ago. This is all happening within one lifetime. So who is the Koch party? Is Ben-Gvir a racist and a terrorist? Why would the government allow such a person to hold this powerful position, essentially being the warden of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip? Koch and Kahane has been on the U.S. terrorist organization list since 1994. They draw their roots from Rabbi Meir Kahane, a co-founder of JDL, and only in 2002, due to immense political pressure, were Koch members removed from the terrorism list, just in time to fill the government of Benjamin Netanyahu with more murderous, more bloodthirsty politicians. And we saw right-wing authoritarianism spread all over the world, making for the final solution Israel is now enacting in Gaza. Complete extermination of the Palestinian people through any means necessary, according to the teachings of their extremist terrorist leader. In 1971, he founded the Koch Party, which simply means thus. And that same year, he was arrested for conspiracy to manufacture explosives and received a suspended 5-year sentence for his involvement in the plot to blow up the Libyan embassy in Brussels. In this tit-for-tat series of attacks, initiated by the Zionist terrorism and incitement of Arabs since 1917, when the British Empire promised the land to the Zionists, who couldn't begin occupying it until the 1920s, when they, over the next 2 decades, moved over 100,000 Jews into Palestine. Tensions rose and finally came to a head in 1936, 1939, when the indigenous Arab population revolted. Martin David Kahane was born in 1932 in Brooklyn, New York, apparently one of the largest breeding grounds for exported Zionist terrorism, a member of the revisionist Zionist movement that promoted the arming of Jews in the U.S. to fight African Americans, the PLO, Soviet representatives, and even other Jewish organizations they viewed as moderate. He coined the phrase "for every Jew, a 22," and spread his violent racism anywhere that he could. Their goals were simple: to steal with violence the entire land of Palestine, ignoring the 1967 borders, laying claim to the entire territory for Israel. In 1984, even with his checkered past, he was allowed to enter the Knesset, pulling the mask of civility slightly askew to expose the rot lying underneath. Two things are striking and typical of Mir Kahane as they relate to the broader situation. One, he was never truly punished for his crimes, receiving a slap on the wrist for literal terrorism charges and then being allowed into positions of power. This is unfortunately a trend and not an anomaly. The turning the perpetrator of violence into a victim and shielding him with word salad rhetoric, twisting into pretzels in order to justify this insanity is par for the course for the brutal apartheid state of Israel. He fought any peace negotiations or coexistence with Palestinians tooth and nail and gave great speeches to empty rooms and proposed laws that were so vile at the time that they never passed. But like many torchbearers of this anti-light, he left an indelible mark on many young, angry, and impressionable minds, with the mentality of a spoiled child saying, "No, this is mine." Enter Ben-Gvir, a man who hung a photo of Goldstein on his wall and celebrated the serial killer who vandalized the car of a prime minister shortly before he was assassinated as a teenager, who, while in public office, entered the occupied territories many times, brandishing weapons in the face of peaceful Palestinians. We can only imagine what he is doing behind the scenes in the prisons where so many Palestinians are wrongfully imprisoned, 12 and 13-year-olds tortured for throwing rocks at tanks. Most prisoners released from Israeli prisons come back with signs of torture permanently tattooed on their bodies. There's so much more to go into here. There are many, many, many other bad actors, and this is just a slice of the pie. It's a bit of the tail, just some information for those that may not be initiated. And I'm doing this for one reason, and one reason only: to see justice in this world for the Palestinian people, and to see the actors who serially kill them, who torture and antagonize them, who starve them and taunt them, who rape them and blow them up and displace them, who steal their lands and their home. This justice, this great injustice, it is simple. What they are doing and what they have been doing is wrong. The land of Palestine rightfully belongs to the Palestinians who occupied it for 2,000 years. Before the British, before the colonial projects, these people tended their crops, their livestock, their olive trees. They lived with nature in a way that is foreign to the Western mind, who builds concrete structures stretching to the sky and secretly abhors the trees. This story may seem familiar because it has happened before. Before the internet and the speed of information we enjoy today in America, many genocides happened. Many settlers came to a land that was already occupied, stole it, displaced people, spread disease, starved, and killed. But past injustices do not justify their repetition. And certainly not in the modern world would we allow more death camps, more Holocaust, more apartheid, and more settler colonialism. But we do. We do this in broad daylight. The IDF dances and laughs as they lead the Palestinian people into extermination and starvation camps, rubbing their palms together, greedily salivating at the thought of controlling everything from the river to the sea. My name is Jedediah, and I'm just a person who lives in this world, and I am disgusted at what I see every day. Everything that I wrote was written by me and uninfluenced by anyone else. I've been spending these last 4 months trying to learn about what is going on in this part of the world, to familiarize myself with the information so that I can be an advocate for the people who are being so unfairly treated. Out in the open, you can just look online at Twitter or Instagram, anywhere, and you can see children with limbs blown off. You can see children who have been hit with white phosphorus on their face and the skin is peeling off. Over 10,000 children have died. It's not just like any other conflict. This is one touch point in a massive, long, 75-year struggle. Yes, Hamas struck back at Israel. Israel had already killed something like 238 people in those 6 days in the beginning of October. They are not the innocent victims here. They have welcomed this violence. Hamas did not exist when Israel was created or settled. They made Hamas. One of the leaders of Hamas wrote about why he is in Hamas. His uncle was blown up in front of him. Think about that for a second. If you're a human being with blood flowing through your body that's not cold, it makes sense. No death of civilians is ever something I will applaud or justify, but I can understand why, with everything that has happened and the world ignoring them completely until Israel starts slaughtering people, and then people pay attention, and then it goes back to normal. I'm sure the Palestinians are sick of this, and I think the Israelis are sick of it for another reason. They don't want to deal with this problem anymore. They would rather kill and starve every single person in Gaza so that they can take that part of the land and take it for themselves. If you do this for religious reasons, your religion is useless. Pure religion, undefiled before the Lord, is to take care of the fatherless, to feed the hungry, to be honest, to keep yourself unstained from a corrupt world. It's not to kill people and take their land, even in the Old Testament, even the Torah, the Ten Commandments condemn you. You are coveting your neighbor's land and what they own. You have broken that commandment. You are murdering people, innocent people. Lots of people try to twist that commandment and try and say, oh, well, it's okay to kill during war. Fuck off. You're killing innocent people and you know it. And you can't tell me that the sky is green. Don't pay attention to all the spin from the mainstream media, from Israeli propagandists. You may as well be listening to Goebbels. These people have become the Nazis. This is the cycle of abuse, where the abuser or the abused becomes the abuser. But it's not. It's more complicated than that, because before the Holocaust, Israel was committing terrorist acts in Palestine, and this is in the historical record. They antagonized the indigenous people to fight back. They are the original aggressors because they settled in land that was not theirs. Your fictional book, or whatever you want to call it, does not give you the right to that land. This massive kingdom of David and Solomon, where is the evidence of that? Where's the evidence? One stone? One stone with David's name on it? With the name David, which is a very common name? Come on. Come on. Spin, 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 spin till you fall over and lose your balance and throw up on the floor. You will never convince me that what Israel is doing and has done in Palestine is not one of the most terrible acts of inhumane treatment to a people that at least we have seen in this modern age. And it is just disgusting. All of you U.S. politicians supporting this, all of you countries defunding UNRWA, you should be ashamed of yourselves. You should be. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Your blackened souls will haunt you for the rest of their life. The souls of 30,000 plus innocent civilians who have been killed I pray that their ghosts haunt your sleep every night. I pray that you, when you try to put your head down on the pillow, Mr. Ben Gavir, you fat fucking slob, I pray you cannot sleep. You hear the screams of the people that you have killed. There's not much more that I can say. And me raging and angry, I don't know if it really produces anything positive. For all the Palestinians in Gaza and around the world, salam alaikum. Salam. I wish you peace. I can't even say don't lose hope. You know, when this first happened, I had my car broke down highway in New Jersey, and my tow truck driver. This was maybe October 8th, 9th. He was Palestinian, and I was surprised at his calmness and his detachment. And at the time, I didn't know as much as I know now. The Palestinians, as far as I can see, are a proud, dignified people who have suffered so much and yet still try to maintain their dignity. Some of them fight back where they can, most of them just want to survive. And on the other side, you have a Jewish society completely separate from them that is completely propagandized from the beginning in the educational system. They enter the military service. And then when they finally, maybe at 20 or 30 years old, go into the occupied territories and meet a Palestinian person, see them. Some of them are shocked and surprised because they realize they've been lied to. They've been told that these people are monsters and they're violent and they hate Jews and they want to kill them all. But that's absolutely not true. None of the evidence backs that up. Militant groups that fight back are a direct result of the terrorism that Israel inflicts on Arab populations. And most people in America don't know this. When 9/11 happened, Israel cheered. They were very, very happy because they knew this would be good for them. Because they're planted in the middle of Arab land. They always say, oh, look how much land the Arabs have. We only want a little piece of it. Why can't we kill 30, 40,000 people and take their land? It's just a little piece of land on a map. That is so inhuman. That is so cold-blooded. That is so cynical. A map is not real. There are people that live there. They're real people. It's not just you color out a little territory and say, oh, great, there we go, we got it. You've slaughtered innocent people to obtain that. If there's any karma, if there's any justice in this world, these people that are doing this and cheering it on and laughing about it, if only their own psychology and human nature that they're suppressing, their subconscious, at some point it will become too much. And I'm sorry to tell you that you will have to process having been on the wrong side of history, having supported another Holocaust against people, largely innocent people, who just want to live in peace and have done nothing against you at all. I can say a lot more. No, that's it. Thank you. God bless you. I do want to see this world in peace. I think the first step is getting rid of these psychotic, bloodthirsty leaders and all of these spin doctors. Stop worshiping spin. Yeah, it's impressive when somebody's super smart and they can spin everything around and make it all like sound great and make these amazing arguments. But the truth is, you can make a fucking argument if you're willing to lie, especially if you're willing to lie. You can make an argument to support anything and make it compelling. So we have to be smart. We have to learn logical fallacies. We have to learn how to spot them when someone's using a straw man, when someone's appealing to authority. These people are not as smart as they think they are, and they have massive organizations, which gives the impression that they're smart. But in fact, they're just little, weak, small people. All of us. Humanity is fragile. They're not super geniuses. And their propaganda is falling apart because of the sheer volume of slaughter. They make up all of these false claims to try and get people to come to their side. It's all debunked. It's all lies. And they've done this over and over and over again. They tried to defund UNRWA in 2014. with the same kind of bullshit. And after investigations, you know what happened? They found out the Israelis had lied to them. They want to get rid of the agency that feeds these refugees, that they have made into refugees, so that they can starve them to death because they can't blow them all up. And that is disgusting. And that is not complicated. You don't have to have a degree to understand that. You don't have to be a master of spin. You don't have to be a master of logic to see through spin. All you have to do is look at the reality of what is going on. And thankfully, some brave, brave Palestinians, even while their families are being slaughtered, risked posting pictures online and showing us what's happening there. And a lot of them were arrested and placed in the jail and probably tortured because they showed us the horror that Israel is inflicting, and they did a tiny, tiny bit to prevent that from going unpunished. Israel has gone without accountability for too long. They're like a spoiled child, and they need to get their hand slapped, or else the monster we've created is going to get bigger and worse. It is an embarrassment to good Jewish people all over the world that Israel is doing this. You are welcoming in anti-Semitism. You are stoking the flames of anti-Semitism because your actions are so abhorrent. I'm Jedediah. This is Jedediah's Corner. I know I stuttered a little bit. I'm not a professional podcaster, but I hope to do more of these. And God bless you all. Salam alaikum. Peace. And I pray for you and your families. And I pray you find some small level of comfort from wherever you can get it.